after the way we played last night, if you don't come out with energy, passion and fire, then this is probably not the team for you to be on.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily podcast on fantasy basketball. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast, brought to you by Fantrax and Basketball Monster. And today's Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast is also brought to you by Michael Widmer, who is today's Patreon sponsor. If you want to be like Michael Widmer and sponsor the show, head across to patreon.com/redrock_bball. My name is Josh Lloyd and you can find me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Instagram is the same, redrock_bball, and facebook.com/redrockbasketball. Starting recording this one a little bit earlier today. There's about a minute 30 left in the last game of the night, that is Lakers-Bucks, but by the time we get to recapping that one, it'll be all over. So we'll get into that as soon as we can. No more delays.
Let's get to it.
All right, let's indeed. The monstrous line of the night once again goes to Jimmy Harden of the Houston Rockets. Another huge triple-double for Jim. 41, 14, 11, 4 triples, 2 steals. He was 12 of 21 from the field and hit 13 of his 14 free throws. He remains the number one player over the course of the entire season. If you picked him at number one, you're pretty wrapped, I would think. I think if you pick Westbrook at number one, you'd be pretty happy as well. Harden's been ridiculous. Still my pick for the MVP. 29, 8, and 11. 1.5 steals, 3.2 triples, 45 and 85 from the field and from the line, and he's hitting 35% of his threes as well. A monster true shooting of 62% for Jim. He's been fantastic. Like, what more do I need to say? Yes, the Rockets did lose today, despite this big performance from Jimmy. But he has been a monster. He will continue to be a monster. He is one player that at this point that you don't have to worry about missing games. Now, anything can happen, but this guy has been unbelievably durable throughout the course of his career. He missed 0 games last year, 1 game the year before. I don't think he's missed a single game this season. He is as durable as they come. So Jim has been ridiculous, and he was once again. So he is your monstrous line of the night. The waiver wire line of the night, the man who upstaged Jim in the game between the Rockets and the Pelicans. This is possibly the most absurd waiver wire line of the night, just because of the player that is Solomon Hill. Yes, Solomon Hill, the man who goes out and scores about 2 points a game, just dropped a 30-burger on the Rockets' head. He hit 6 triples, he had 6 rebounds, he had 7 assists and 2 steals. Now, this sort of more aggressive Solomon Hill is the guy that I said, you know what, he's not too far off being worth a late-round flyer, given the fact that he's going to find himself a consistent role in the Pelicans. He played well through the playoffs for the Pacers, and he's just been an absolute disaster. But this was a huge performance from him. I said that he was averaging 2 points a game. He's not. He's averaging 6.9. And in 29 minutes, that is ludicrously low. Under 2 assists, under 4 rebounds, hitting a 3 a game. He's shooting 39% from the field. But what we've seen recently, and weirdly over the last week, he's the 37th ranked player. Yes, averaging 15.5 points, 2.5 threes, almost a steal, almost a block, and 56 and 92 from the field and from the line. Ridiculous numbers coming up. And even over the last month, Solly Hill, almost a top 150 player. That's putting him into a 16-team league territory, maybe even 14-team league territory. And with the increased role, yes, he had an increased role in this one because DeMarcus Cousins was out. But if Cousins misses more time moving forward, Solly's not going to be a complete disaster as a streaming option. And that's the most praise that I can give him, basically, after what's been an absolute nightmare of a season this year when he's done pretty much nothing. But he's trending up at the right time of the year. So Solly Hill is your waiver wire line of the night. Your young gun is, I'm sure this is not a surprise, Karl Anthony Towns had 31 and 11. He had a 3, he had an assist. He was a perfect 8 of 8 from the line, and he went 11 of 17 from the field. He is still the 9th ranked player for the season and the 3rd ranked player over the last 2 months. He is that good that we don't even realize how good he is. He is for sure a top 10 player next year, almost guaranteed a top 5 guy. If you picked him in Dynasty, you would have picked him at number 1. You will continue to pick him at number 1. I would think maybe you want to take Giannis at number 1. But yeah, what more do I need to say about this guy? The numbers just keep on racking. The minutes are super impressive. And you hope that wear and tear on joints and ligaments doesn't really come through and become a problem. But he has been ludicrously good. Let's go dud of the night. This guy hasn't been ludicrously good, so therefore he is the dud of the night, and that's Wes Matthews. Returning from injury, Wes scored just the 3 points. He had 2 boards and 2 assists. He had the anti-triple one, no threes, no steals, no blocks, and went 1 of 8 from the field and 1 of 2 from the line. It has not been a good stretch of time for Wes. He is outside the top 200 over the last month. He's still ranked 100th on the season, but I would not be holding on to him in 10-team leagues. I don't think I'd be holding on to him in 12-team leagues. He provides one positive skill, and that's 3-pointers, and you can just find them wherever you want. You know, bring in an Uncle P, bring in Mirza Teletovic, stream your threes. Don't waste a roster spot on Wes Matthews, I don't think, in any 10 or 12-team size league. So Wes is your dud of the night, and still owned in 72% of leagues, but if you're still battling in the league, I don't think that you need to be holding on to him. I think you can consider moving on from Wes Matthews in majority of cases. All right, let's get stuck into these games now, talk about them in a little bit more detail. The first game we're going to look at is the Chicago Bulls and the Washington Wizards. The Bulls lose to the Wizards, unsurprisingly. Let's talk about what Chicago did with Dwayne Wade out with that elbow problem. They didn't start my boy Denzel Valentine. They started Paul Zipser, who played 28 minutes. Now, Zipser had 8 and 7 with 2 assists in his 28 minutes. And I say that Valentine's my boy. Zipser's pretty much my boy as well. But he is just a deeper league sort of player, 18-teamer, maybe 20-teamer, nothing too exciting for shallow leagues. But I still liked, again, what I saw from Denzel. 31 minutes, and this is the sort of role I think we can expect from Denzel moving forward. 11, 4, and 2 with 2 triples. He is definitely, I won't say definitely, he has got a very, very good shot of being a must-own player for this last stretch of time, so consider him. They also didn't make the change at power forward, but it doesn't matter because Nikola Mirotic is once again proving without a shadow of a doubt that he is by far the best player in that position on this team. Bob Porter started and played 16 minutes and had 3 and 6. Mirotic played 32 minutes and had 15 and 7. Added a steal, 3 blocks, 2 triples. Mirotic has to be owned. He is a must-own player. Someone tweeted at me today that I own a condo on Mirotic Island. Yeah, maybe I do. I'm still convinced he's a good player, and I think we're going to see that here down the stretch. So own him. Jim Butler had a bit of a bounce back after a couple of real stinkers in a row. 28, 5, and 5 with 3 steals and 2 triples from Jim. A nice performance there. While Rob Lopez played 33 minutes. And he had a big game as well, 25 and 12 for Lopez with a block in those 33 minutes and shot 75% from the field. He had been trending down in a pretty severe manner. So I don't think you need to be getting too excited about what Robin Lopez is bringing to you. And if he was on the waiver wire, consider leaving him there. Don't add him just based on this. But the Bulls do play on Saturday. So I think you're going to, you're absolutely fine to stream in for Saturday's action, but wouldn't be clamoring to get him thinking that he's the saviour to everything. Mick Carter-Williams, the backup point guard, Jaren Grant, still out of the rotation because that is the Bulls. Let's go to the Wizards. Johnny Wall, 20 assists. That is huge. That is matchup winning pretty much. 14 points, 0 rebounds, 20 assists, and the 1-1 for John after he was battling that foot problem, but he was fine to go. Now, Markieff Morris sat this one out with an illness. So Jason Smith, out of nowhere, 38 minutes for Smitty. 17 and 7. He almost had the Richie Beno, except he went better. He had 3 threes, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. Obviously a massive performance. The Wizards play again on Saturday as well. So if Markieff is not ready to go, then we know that Smitty's going to get a fair chunk of playing time. He can be a useful option during that game for Saturday. So consider him. Brattles Beal had 24 and 4 in his 32 minutes, and the Marcin Gortat Jan Mihinmi situation continues to be a real detriment to Gortat. 8 and 8 in 22 minutes, but I think if you still got Gortat, which is not something I recommend, but if you still do have him, I think that we see big minute Gortat on Saturday. It's a back-to-back, and the pattern from what the Wizards have done is one game in the back-to-back, they limit them, or they play, not limit them, they play them what they want to, and then in that second game, if Mihinmi's not right to play his full load, then we see Gortat get back up to 30 minutes, and Mihinmi goes 14 or 15, so that's a real chance for Saturday. So if for some reason you're still holding on to Gortat, it wouldn't be the opportune time to drop him here, because I think we might see a big double-double in 30-32 minutes, and then he goes back to these sort of crap performances that we saw here. Mihinmi had 16 points in 20 minutes. He's had 2 of the most outlierish performances of the season. That 7 steal game and then 16 points in 20 minutes. They're just never going to happen again. He provides good field goal percentage, blocks, high steals for a center, good rebounds, but it's not enough to be a 12-team league sort of player. And Bojan Bogdanovic had 12 points in 25 minutes. He's not worth it. The Mavericks and the Sixers. Wow, the Sixers got the victory. They didn't just get the victory. They absolutely smashed them. 42-point win. That is a huge victory for the for the Mavericks. For the Sixers over the Mavericks. That is a massive difference. Massive score difference. So the Mavericks, they got pummeled, and that's part of why Wes Matthews had that poor game. But everyone else, minutes were really restricted, so there's not much to read into there. Nerlens Noel, just the 19 off the bench, 9 and 5 with a steal and a block. I don't think we're going to see 30-minute Nerlens this season. So if you need to drop him, if you need to move on, fine. Yogi Ferrell, 4, 5, and 3, 23 minutes. If you need to move on, move on. Seth Curry, 7 points in 17 minutes. I'd still be holding him. The pencil had 4 points in 24, while Dirk had 10 in 19. But realistically, I wouldn't get too hung up on looking at the performances in this game because it was terrible. But I don't think it's reflective of everything that's going to happen moving forward. The Sixers side of things, they made a change to their starting lineup. Now, I was fairly certain that they would continue starting Jahlil Okafor, and the reason I said that is because they said they would. Turns out they didn't, because Richaun Holmes started. Now, Holmesy only played 20 minutes in this game, but man, was he good. 17 and 7 with 2 steals. Probably has to be owned everywhere if they're going to continue to start him. He just looks so much better than Okafor nearly every time he's out there. While Jahlil played more minutes, played 21 minutes, had 10 points with 3 boards and an assist. Not a great night for him. He's really just a scoring option that's not going to hit every night. So see, does that work for you? Some cases yes, most cases no. Bob Carve had 18 and 9 with 3 threes, while it was a good Justin Anderson night. He had 19 and 8 with a pair of triples, but he has been significantly limited in recent times, so there's not much to see there. Šarić had just the 10, 7, and 5, but much like the Mavericks, because it was such a blowout, then the minutes were able to be spread all over the place. We saw Sergio Rodriguez play more than TJ McConnell, but again, there's just not a huge amount to read into that. But one thing you can read into is that Timothé Luwawu-Cabarrot is probably going to start for the rest of the year. 30 minutes for TLC. He had 12, 4, and 2 with 2 triples. Not 12 team. Streamable, sure. But he's more going to be that deeper league sort of player. But that role is going to be fairly consistent from TLC moving forward. Toronto and Detroit. Terrible game in terms of scoring, 87-75, but the Raptors get the victory. PJ Tucker back to decent minutes, 27 minutes for Peach, 8 and 9 with 3 steals and 2 triples. My mistake. Not much to really see there with him. DeMar DeRozan really can't get anything going, and it's a weird situation to see DeRozan take only 9 shots and to see 3 other players take more shot attempts. 14, 8, and 6 for DeRozan, while Serge Ibaka had 17 and 9. He'd been really poor lately, so it was good to see him get an improved performance. Corey Joseph played 36 minutes and had 9, 7, and 6, and that's sort of about average level production from Joseph, I would have thought. JV, Jonas Valanciunas, 10 and 8 in his 24 minutes. He had a steal, he had a block. That's, again, solid production, but he's really just limited by their playing time. Really, that just limits everything that he can do. While Damari Carroll was a little bit better, having 12 points in 24 minutes. Not a lot to see there with him, though. On to the Pistons. The tackle box played 29 off the bench. He had 12 and 5. Solid. Deep leagues only, while Toby Harris had 14 and 7 in his 33 minutes. And it was a good night from Andre Drummond from a couple of respects. 1, he stayed on the court for 36 minutes, so that was good. 2, he grabbed 22 rebounds and had 2 steals and a block. Still just 4 of 10 from the field. And Van Gundy needs to give up on trying to make him into a post player. It's never going to happen. Just give it up. Just forget about it, Stan. Like, there is no point to keep forcing this. It's been 3 years, and it is never getting better. And ever since Van Gundy arrived in Detroit, we have seen Drummond's field goal percentage go from one of his biggest assets, 65% sort of shooter, to a low 50s guy. And it's not working, and he needs to give up that. Reggie Jackson, 20 points in 28 minutes, 6 assists. He's unreliable, but I still would own him in most cases, while Ish Smith had 4 and 3 in his 20. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, this is a massive dry spell. 9, 2, and 2 for KCP. Not a must-own, well, nor is Marcus Morris, obviously. He was 1 of 13 for 7% shooting. 3 points in 35 minutes. Oh, man, that is terrible. All right, next game, Boston and Brooklyn. Jay Crowder. It had been a lean little run for Jay, but this is a nice bounce back. It was always looking like a good matchup, and he took full advantage. 24 and 12 with 4 triples, 1 steal, no Isaiah Thomas, so that helped him, while Al Horford was great as well. 14, 8, and 4 with a steal and 4 blocks for Horf. Marcus Smart started in place of Isaiah. He had 12, 3 and 5, 3 steals. That's just exactly what he does. So is 21% shooting from the field, but the assists, the steals, that's really what Smart provides. Not a must-own guy, but if you want those categories, you know that he's going to bring them in pretty good bunches, while 16 and 5 for Avery Bradley was a nice little bonus. Not much else happening with Boston. Jaylen Brown has dropped off considerably. 0 points in 16 minutes. Let's go on to Brooklyn. Brook Lopez, we discussed it yesterday, did not rest. Played 31 minutes in a back-to-back, and that's about the last 5 back-to-backs in a row that he has played. So I don't think we've got too much to worry about with him moving forward in terms of back-to-backs until they decide they're not going to play him again, but we don't know when that's going to go down. 23, 5 and 4 for Brookie, 2 threes and 2 blocks. While Jezza Lynn, Kenny Atkinson continues to be the most frustrating coach. Lynn played just 21 minutes. Still was productive, 10, 7 and 6, 2 threes and a block, but when he was asked after the game, Jeremy Lin, about his minutes, he just offered a no comment. So it's frustrating him. I hate the way that Atkinson's running this. It is absolutely ludicrous in my opinion. And yes, he's a young coach with a team that's going nowhere and limited talent. But you got limited talent. So how about to play the guys that are actually talented? It doesn't matter if you lose. You're not protecting draft picks. In fact, it's better if you win because it helps weaken an opponent. So there's no reason for this at all. Randy Ford played 27 minutes and had 14 points, a good 3-point streamer. Karis LeVert, that when the shots don't fall, then there's not much to see there with Karis. 5, 4 and 2 for him in that limited, again, just another limited role night for Karis. 25 minutes, 5, 4 and 2. While Rondé Hollis-Jefferson, how can you trust what Atkinson does? And nothing he does makes sense. Are there any Nets fans that listen to this podcast? Are there any Nets fans anyway? Are there any that listen to this podcast? And how frustrated are you with Atkinson, or aren't you? Do you just go, it is what it is? To me, it's infuriating. 10 and 5 in 16 minutes for Rondé, and that's why owning Hollis, Jefferson, and LeVert is pretty much an impossibility outside of deep leagues and keeper formats because of this consistent shuffling. Out of nowhere, Andrew Nicholson played. Yes, Andrew Nicholson plays for this team, and he played 17 minutes and had 11, 2 and 2, and he's the guy without Trevor Booker that limited what Hollis Jefferson can do. So that's 2 games in a row where we've had no Trevor Booker, but it doesn't matter for Hollis Jefferson. His minutes either are the same or less. Complete frustration. The Rockets and the Pelicans. Trev Ariza, not a great night, 8 and 8 in his 30 minutes. While there was no Nene, he was resting, so the table got those backup minutes. Montrezl Harrell, 19 minutes, 13 and 6 with a block, hit all 5 of his shots. When he plays, he's productive, but he's just not going to play on a regular enough basis. Ryan Anderson was terrible once more, 8 and 2 in 28 minutes. He is not a 12-team league guy anymore, while Pat Bev had 7 and 7 in his 31, and Clint Capella only saw 19 minutes of action, unfortunately. Continual frustration with how underused he is, in my opinion. 6 and 4 in 19 minutes for Clint. Didn't even really have foul trouble. Lou Williams, after the high of that smashing against the Lakers, went back to a pretty average performance. 31 minutes, 14 points, 1 rebound, 2 assists. He's fine to own. I don't think he's a must-own guy, while Sammy Decker had to leave the game early with back spasms. The Pelican side of things, there was no Boogie, as I mentioned, so we had Dante Cunningham back in the starting lineup. He had 7 and 9 in his 39 minutes, added a steal and a block there as well. There's not a lot to see at all with him. Tone Davis, 24 and 15, a pair of blocks and a steal, while Drew, this is another good Drew night, and it just continues to be weird to me. No Boogie, and Holiday can shoot better. It seems so weird to me that without Cousins around, that his efficiency goes up when you would think logically it would go the other way. 19, 3 and 6 with a pair of blocks for Drew, while Wayne Selden remained starting and had 11 points with 3 triples. How did Jordan Crawford go? Well, it wasn't his best game. In fact, it was his worst. 7, 5 and 3 in 19 minutes for Crawford on 3 of 10 shooting. He's still going to get his shots. We saw that. He is 5th highest in field goal attempts on the team in just those 19 minutes. But if they don't go in, then not a lot else happens with him. So he's a good stream option. He's a good GPP DFS guy, but he's not going to be a reliable source of multiple numbers. The Minnesota Timberwolves and the Miami Heat. The Heat continue to win at an NBA best pace. It is amazing what they are. I believe I saw since January 1 they are 23 and 5. Maybe I'm even underselling that. That is ludicrous. It is amazing that they are the best team in the NBA in the 2017 portion of this season. Look at their roster. Just look at it. It is amazing. Spoelstra, ridiculously good coach. This is ridiculous. Let's talk Minnesota, though. I talked about Townsy already. Wigo had a better game. A 1-1 with 26 points is a much better performance from him. But I got to talk about the ravishing one. Ravishing Rick Rubio. How good is he? Yes, Rick Rubio, another 20.6 assists, 2 steals and 1 block, 57% shooting. So not only is he an aggressive scorer, that he can shoot now. It is one of the weirdest transformations we've seen. That's 4 straight games of at least 20 points for Rubio. I don't think anyone would have ever expected to see that. Yeah, he's just really good. I don't know what more to say about Rubio. The numbers have been ridiculous. There was no Nemanja Bjelica, as will be the case for the rest of the year. So Gorgie Jeng, no one's taking his minutes, but it didn't matter because he was useless. 0 points, missed all 7 of his shots, had 5 boards and 2 blocks, but he's still a hold. While Shabazz Muhammad, this is what Shabazz does. 15 points on 70% shooting and a combined 3 rebounds and assists. 1 board, 2 assists, nothing else. Great for points, terrible for everything else. So that's the way you should be looking at him. Onto the Heat, Hassan Whiteside. Can't miss free throws anymore, apparently. 100% from the line, 91% from the field, 23 and 14 with 3 blocks. The Hassan Whiteside we're seeing now is the Hassan Whiteside that we wanted to draft, just crushing it. Goran Dragic, 19, 5 and 10 with 3 steals, but it came at a cost because Dion Waiters hurt his ankle and he is missing time. There is no doubt in my mind that he is missing time. X-rays came back negative, but there is no way that he is not missing a game here. You should consider, and maybe wait until we hear the news about Waiters, but he is very, very firmly in the drop zone, and you can get rid of him in majority of cases. This looks like it's going to be not even a multi-day thing, like at least a multi-week thing would be my guess. At this point, it does not look good for Dion. He couldn't take his free throws. They had to be carried off the court. That's how bad it was. So expect that he is going to be a droppable player. That's going to open things up for Tyler Johnson. He had 23, 2 and 3 with 2 blocks and 2 triples. This definitely improves what he can do. It improves his outlook, so that makes him a little bit more solid moving forward. And we also saw Joshie Richardson play 32 minutes. He didn't do anything, but he played 32 minutes, had 5, 4, and 3 and the 3 blocks. Only took 5 shots, so I'm not clamoring to go and grab him. Jimmy Johnson was awesome. 17, 2, and 6. He did make us proud. 17, 2 and 6, 1 3, 2 steals, 1 block, 67% shooting. He had definitely dropped off recently, but this the removal of Waiters from the equation is going to help him. It's also going to improve what Wayne Ellington can do. The Duke only played 18 minutes here and had 7 points with a 3, but he is going to be a very, very good source of 3-pointers if that's what you need. And that's why when I talked earlier about Wes Matthews, it's not to hold him, because you can just add guys like the Duke and get him off the waiver wire, and he'll give you 3. He'll give you 5 triples at times, and he becomes a great streaming option in that sort of a situation. All right, let's move to the next game. It is the Orlando Magic and the Phoenix Suns. Nikola Vucevic was questionable heading into this game with an ankle problem, but he came through, played 32 minutes, had 18 and 17 with 3 steals. Another good performance from him. He always seems to be a little bit, or you always seem to be a little bit concerned with him just in terms of injury and missing games, but hopefully it's not going to be a concern with him as we move forward. So good to have him. Good to have him playing. Asa Gordon, 17 and 4 for Az, a steal, 4 blocks, and I just talked about this yesterday about Gordon and about the lack of defensive numbers, and then he comes out and puts together a 5 steal and block combo performance. Really good stuff from him. Fine to be owned, but I wouldn't be locking myself into him. Lord Alfred Payton had 10, 4, and 11 with 3 steals, and Evan Fournier had 25 points. So once again, the main 4 guys in this team doing all the damage. Terry Ross, after a really big struggle, had 14 points with 2 threes, but nothing else. Another one of those guys that you can consider a 3-point streamer. And that's about all you should be considering him. For the Suns, Tyler Ulis, another start. Also official that Brandon Knight won't play again for this team for the season. No Leandro Barbosa. So we got 40 minutes out of Ulis. 19, 4, and 8. Took the most shots on the team. It really was weird having him out there doing everything and limiting what Devin Booker could do, which I'm not sure that's the way that he needs to go ahead and do things. But of course, Tyler Ulis is a must-own player. Booker only played the 30 minutes and only took 13 shots less than what Ulis did. He had 10, 4, and 3 with 2 steals, while TJ Warren continues to be a monster. Remember all that time that you had to sit through holding him, and I said, I think it's going to be worth it, I think it's going to be worth it? It's worth it. 26 and 5, 2 steals, 2 blocks. This kid's real good. Marquise Chris only played 26 minutes because he got into foul trouble. Who would have guessed that? 13 and 8 with 4 blocks. The blocks have been very nice from Chrissy. He's fine to own, obviously, but there's going to be ups and downs. It was a big Alex Len night here as well. We saw 28 minutes from Len, 9 and 10 with 3 steals and 2 blocks. Only 25% shooting, but a good night. That doesn't mean that I want to own Len. I still believe in him, but this is the first big performance we've really seen. Big Sauce only saw the 16 minutes with Len playing well, 12 and 7, and it's still good. So if you're still owning Williams, good. Keep doing it. I think you should continue to do that. The last game of the night is the Lakers and the Bucks. The Bucks get the victory in the end on the road. Greggy Monroe was ejected, as was D'Angelo Russell and Uncle P. Monroe was putting up some pretty good numbers until he went out. He was a perfect 6 of 6 from the field and had 12 and 6, a steal and 3 blocks. Some good numbers there, while Yanni had 26, 8 and 5 and a pair of blocks. Chrissy Middleton doing it as well. 30 points on 61% shooting. Not many other numbers, but some good scoring performances there. And let's check on the point guards. Who played the most minutes? It's a miracle, because Malcolm Brogdon played more minutes and he started. That is very anti-Kid. But it just also once again goes to show us that trying to establish a pattern with what Kid does, it's impossible, because everything he does is seemingly on a whim without any planning. Brogo had 6 and 5 with 2 steals. He is fine to own. I don't think he's a must-own, and Daly is obviously not anywhere near that sort of a classification. On to the Lakers. D'Angelo Russell was looking a bit better. 21 minutes, still came off the bench, had 14, 2 and 2 before his ejection, while Jordy Clarkson was then forced into 38 minutes of action. He had 21 and 5 with 4 threes. Larry Nance played 7 minutes in the last game, played 28 here, 13, 4 and 2 with 4 steals. Been an absolutely awesome source of steals in terms of a streamer. Has been great at that. While Ivica Zubats, everyone was really dropping him. He's a dud, he's terrible. Foul trouble really limited him in the last game. 29 minutes here for Zubats, 18 and 8. I think he should be owned everywhere. I've said this for a long time. He's their best center, and he has been all year. Julius Randle, 4, 12 and 8. One of those confusing Randle nights, but the 12 boards and the 8 assists do help you out there. While Brandon Ingram, 11, 1, 4, 2 and 1. That's a very, not complete, it's a very full line, I guess is the best way for me to phrase that. And despite him being literally one of the worst rookies of the season, he's picking it up at the right time of the year, and that means he has value. He's more a must-own 14-teamer, but he can absolutely be owned in 12 teamers because he is producing, and we know that the minutes just aren't going anywhere. With with Brandon Ingram. With D'Angelo Russell, his minutes are going in many places. All right, I'm going to take a quick break, and then we're going to be back, and we're going to do a preview for the action for Saturday for DFS. Alright guys, we're back and we're going to start talking DFS action from the games on, what day? For Friday. I always get the days confused because of course it is Saturday here in Australia. You'll probably listen to this on Saturday, but we are talking about the games on Friday. Yes, let me get myself sorted. Alright, let's talk perfect DFS lineups. I don't have the graphic up on the screen at the moment because again, the game finished as I was recording. So let's look at FanDuel. Goran Dragic, 43, and Tyler Ulis, 34.8. Jim Harden, 73.3, and Timmy Frazier at 33. Jim Butler 45.5 and Solly Hill at 49.7. Jason Smith 35.4 and Tone Davis at 48.5, and Robin Lopez had 42.4. For DraftKings, Dragic 46.75, Harden 83, Solomon Hill 54, Jason Smith 37.75, Lopez 45.5. That's Robin. Jim Butler 47.75, Mirotic at 37.25, and Nikola Vucevic at 48.75, and that cost you $49,800 for a total of $400.75. I forgot to give the FanDuel total. That was $405.6, and that cost $59,900 dues. All right, let's get into these games now. There are 8 of them. Again, there's been 8 for Friday, 8 for Saturday, 8 for Sunday. So let's talk about the first one of those games that we're going to look at. It's Sacramento and Oklahoma City. The Thunder are favored by 12.5, and the total is a robust 216 points. Darren Collison and Anthony Tolliver, they both missed the last game due to rest. They should be back, but that means that anyone else is a threat to be rested. Costa Koufos, Aaron Aflalo, Garrett Temple, Ty Lawson. They're probably the main targets to rest, so using a lot of Sacramento guys is tough. But the silver lining here is it's the early game. So we're going to know these lineups before things lock. So you're going to have a real opportunity to put in some good value plays depending on who is in or who is out. At this point, I'm just going to assume everybody is playing. But of course, keep up to date on Basketball Monster as we update all the projections, and stick tuned to our Twitter account at BaskMonster for all the information as it goes down. At point guard for the Kings, well, Lawson or Collison, if one of those guys rests, then the other player comes into play, definitely. Lawson's at 51 and Collison's at 57, but Russ Westbrook's the main attraction. He's at 13,400, which is obviously a lot. But is it too much? He's at 13.6 on DraftKings. I'm not sure that it's too much, to be honest. I think that he's got a real chance of being able to exceed that. In fact, if we look at that salary over the last 6 games, he's gotten enough value to give 5x worth of value in 3 of those last 6 games at a $13,000 price tag. So that's obviously ridiculous production, so I've got no problem with using Russ. He just continues to be pretty much amazeballs. 6,000 for Vic Oladipo. He's just really rock solid at that price. He's getting 30 pretty much every game. No problem. Really, really like it, especially against the Kings team, which is heaven for shooting guards. He's at 66 on DraftKings. Not as interesting. Bud Hield was terrible in the last performance. I don't think he's a great DFS play, so not interested there. Tyreek, Aaron Aflalo, nah. Abrines, 3,700 for Abrines. Yeah, I think it's stretching it a bit. Small forward Robertson, well, he's put together a few pretty decent performances. I definitely don't like him for cash. He's coming off a 26-pointer, but he's got the ability to go for that, 26, 27. His shooting has been much improved recently, so I think that Robertson is definitely worth a sneaky peek in a GPP type of a scenario. No small forwards at all on the Kings roster. At power forward, Taj Gibson. Is this the game he gets 28 minutes? Because if it is, then at 4,200, it's brilliant. That makes him a great GPP play and a terrible cash one. Will Cauley-Stein. 6,200 for Will. He had 48 in that last game. A lot of that on the back of 4 steals and 4 blocks. But still, his minutes have been fairly consistent. So I think he's a good play with some pretty good upside here. But again, this matchup is not the same as taking on the Phoenix Suns, which is what he did in the last one. He's at 61 over on DraftKings, so he's not the most spectacular. Enes Kanter is at 5,500. Really good matchup for Kanter here, I believe. I think he's fine, but I don't really love it. And Skal Labissière is one that people are going to be really on. He's at 4,700, so it's a $1,000 price rise for Labissière. He's at 45 over on DraftKings, and he's coming off a game where he put up 46 points against that Suns team. The Suns team, Marquise Chris, TJ Warren, it's a little bit different than Steve Adams and Taj Gibson. Big difference. 4,700 for Skal. There is no way that I want to deal with that in cash. I think he's going to get his minutes, so he could be worthwhile. But I'm not totally into it. I don't think that it's an absolute lock at that price to bring back value. There is still that risk that he just gets minimized and doesn't get big run. He's had big run in 1 game so far, and it's not a 100% guarantee that that's what happens moving forward. But still, he's a good tournament option. At center, I'm not interested in Steve Adams. His production has been fairly pitiful. 4,500 for Costa Koufos. Yeah, I'm not into that either. Let's go on to the next game. Portland and Atlanta is the next contest we're going to take a look at. The Hawks are favoured by 3.5 and the total is 214. We're likely to get the return of Evan Turner, as I mentioned the other day. This is the game they've been targeting for him to return. So if Mo Harkless had any value, it's going to disappear here in this one. So Turner is back. I don't think that it's going to be a great DFS influencer though. At point guard, Dennis Schroeder's at 7,200, benched in the second half of the last game, but was putting up some really good numbers prior to that. I'm not thinking this is a strong play. I do like it on DraftKings at 68, but 72 on FanDuel. I think there are other better options out there, but he is okay over on DraftKings at 6,800. As for Lillard, always a GPP guy at 8,700. Brilliant matchup for him, but I'm still not really faithful enough in his performances in cash to really get stuck in there. At shooting guard, CJ McCollum at 7,100. He's been putting up some good numbers. I'm on board with CJ here. I think this is a good spot for him on both DraftKings and FanDuel. While Timmy Hardaway at 56, his production recently has been solid. He is inconsistent, and he is someone I'd look at more as a GPP guy. But if you're struggling for cash as a mid-price shooting guard guy, I feel better about Hardaway now than what I have done really at any point in his career. Kent Bazemore is always just an upside GPP guy, but it is a good spot for Baze here. He's played well against Portland in the past, and I think this is a really good opportunity for him. I'm not locking it in by any stretch. As for Turner, no thanks. Mo Harkless, double no thanks. Taurean Prince coming off a couple of really strong games. Absolutely one of the best GPP flyers out there. He had 30 points in his last game and another big game 2 games ago. 3,700, you get 30 points. Very, very good start. So I like him as a GPP guy. I hate it as cash because in between his big minute games, he plays like 4 minutes. Or maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration. He plays like 8 minutes or 9 minutes. And that's obviously not getting the job done. At power forward, we have got Paulie Millsap, 7,300. Yep, totally fine. Great matchup for Millsap, 73 on DraftKings as well. I like that spot where Al-Farouq Aminu, with the return of Turner, I think that does impact Aminu a little bit. At 4,800, he hadn't been getting the job done regardless, so that's a no from me. At center, Yusuf Nurkic, 6,300. Dwight Howard on him is a concern, but his salary is coming back down to earth. I think he is fine at that price tag. I don't think that it's a terrible one. I hate the 67 on DraftKings, but I'm okay with it on FanDuel. As for Dwight at 6,800, has been completely eliminated from the offense of recent times. He's got a great record against Portland, but I am not loading up on Dwight here at all. He's at 65 on DraftKings, so again, that's pretty appealing. I think there is definitely something to see there, but it's not a strong option. All right, let's move on to the next one. Washington and the Charlotte Hornets. No spread out at the moment. We don't expect Nicola Batum to play with that migraine still bothering him, and the other one we need to check on is Markieff Morris. If Markieff is out, then it's going to be Jason Smith time, and it's going to be unleash your Jason Smiths. He's a minimum salary player who put up 35 points today, a real winner. So we want to know more information about Markieff before we shove him into a lineup. Let's talk point guards. Kemba's at 8,000. Yeah, not against John. Love what Kemba's been doing recently, but not against John Wall. John Wall's too good of a defender for me to care too much about what Kemba Walker's doing at that sort of a salary. Speaking of Johnny, 10,400 for Wall. He's been putting up solid numbers. Kemba's not someone to really bother him. I think he is absolutely fine, but I would rather, if I'm spending up, you rather take Westbrook in pretty much every situation, even though it is an extra $3,000. Brandon Jennings, not much to see there. Briante Weber, congratulations to him. He has signed a 2-year contract with the Hornets, so great news there. With no Batum, then Jezza Lamb's at 5,200. A little bit of a down game in the last one, but I like him at 5,200. I do think that there is a lot of value there in Lamb. 59 on DraftKings is too high for me. I don't see the upside, and the floor's not high enough to consider it a good option, so that's a pass there. While Braddle's at 8,500. Sorry, Brad, that is too high, and it continues to be too high. It will have to come down. He's at 81 on DraftKings, and while it's better, it's still no good. At small forward, Kid Gilchrist, no. Boyan, 41, tournaments only. Otto Porter, too high. Not a lot to really love in this game, to be honest. Let's look at the power forwards. I don't want to use Markieff, even if he plays at 6,100. While Frank the Tank at 57, the price continues to be too high for Kaminsky. Jason Smith, of course, is an awesome play if Markieff is out. At centre, Cody Zeller is a $5,000 player, and I'm just not totally sold on it. I love Zeller. I think he's a great basketball player. He's just not a good DFS option, so I'm not keen there. Gortat is going to be an interesting tournament guy, because if they follow their pattern and give him the big minutes in the second half of the back-to-back, he'll have low ownership, I believe, and he's got a real chance to exceed 30, 35 points here. But if they don't do that, then that's not going to happen. And then he's not going to have really any value whatsoever. So really just a GPP type of an option for the Polish Hammer, one of the greatest nicknames in the NBA. Ryan Hughes leaves a question here. He says, "You have made me some good money, my good sir." Sorry for butchering that. Ryan, most of it's on you, so congratulations. But I am glad to help anybody to make some money, or to win their leagues in seasonal leagues, or win their GPPs, or win their consistently cash in their double ups and cash games. So Ryan, congratulations for winning money, and everyone who's done so. It really does make me feel good when people tell me, you know what, listen to the podcast all the time, and I've just collected this much money, or I've had a great season. It's always awesome to hear that. So thank you, Ryan, for letting me know. Let's move on to the next game now. We're going to talk Cleveland and the Los Angeles Clippers. We should have Blake and DeAndre Jordan back for the Clippers after they missed the last game due to rest against the Nuggets. Cleveland, we don't know what's happening with Kevin Love. I assume he will still be on a restriction, and this is the first of a back-to-back, so he could sit out this game, or he could sit out Sunday's game, which is against the Lakers. If he's sitting out one, I assume he sits out the Lakers game, but that's pure speculation. We've got Iman Shumpert, who's questionable with a shoulder issue. He left the last game, as did Kyrie, with a knee thing. And Kyrie's more likely to play than Shumpert. He is probable. Or Derek Williams missed the last game with a quad contusion. Williams isn't going to play if he's healthy, so I don't think we need to be too concerned about that. Let's look at point guards. Chrissy Paul has a good matchup. 8,200 against Kyrie, or against whatever they throw out there otherwise. Paul has been averaging 41 over the last 5. I think he is one of the best high-priced type of point guards out there. If you don't want to go full whack and take on Russ's 13,000, Paul is fine on both sides. I think he's got a really solid price. Austin Rivers looked good in the last game, but that was to do with extra minutes. I'm not really keen on looking at him. Darren Williams, Kyrie, 8,600 for Kyrie. Not against Chris Paul, mate. Sorry. I think we can do better than that. Jamal Crawford and JJ Redick are both just GPP options, and Iman Shumpert, if he's healthy, who cares? J.R. Smith had 21 points in the last game. He's at 3,700. Do I buy it? Yeah, of course he can do it. We've seen it before, but surely we're not looking at that as a cash play, really more of a GPP option, who's got the ability to get hot for sure, and that makes him a very interesting GPP guy, but for cash, there is no chance at all. Small forward, LeBronald, 11,100 for LeBron. Has struggled the last 3 times against the Clips with an under 39-point average, but I feel pretty good that LeBron's going to exceed 50 here, so that makes him a solid use of $11,000 on both sides. Really interesting there. Of course, we're not getting too interested in Luke Marmute or Dick Jefferson, who's a minimum salary player, but with Love back, his role is sure to be limited. Now, as for Blakey Griffin, he has done very well against the Cavs in the past. He is at 8,600. I've just got an interruption from Ben. What's he got here for me? Oh, he's all right. Do you feel confident enough to do the interpretation of that kid on the microphone? All right, jump in.
LeBron James.
Yeah, so I hear that about 100 times a day. Thanks for that interference. One day you're going to come and you're going to sit here as I do the podcast, and I'm going to put a little microphone here, and you're going to be my little interrupter, my little comedy person. One day, you're gonna work on that. Thanks for that. Where were we? Power forward, Blakey Griffin. Good history against the Cavs. The salary's come down a lot. I think it's an okay spot to use him. I wouldn't be looking at him as a cash option. Love it on DraftKings at 8,000. I would even consider that in cash. More so tournaments, but I would consider it in cash. Mo Spates, Chan, Fry. Not much to see there. Now Lovey, 7,800 for Love. 20 minutes? Nah. I don't think he's playing more than 20 minutes, so that is a no from me. DeAndre Jordan, 7,400, has really been putting up some big numbers lately. The Cavs have been historically a hard team for centers to put up the numbers against, but not recently. So I'm all right with using DeAndre at 7,400. I think there's something to see there. Tristan Thompson, there's not a lot for me to see there as well. DeAndre's at 6,500 on DraftKings. That comes in at a very, very nice price. All right, let's go to the next one. Utah and Chicago. The Jazz are favored by 7, and the total is a disgusting 193 points. Rocket Rodney Hood is questionable with knee soreness. I don't think that Rocket goes, and if Rocket is out, we're obviously looking at Jingle and Joe Ingles again, who will start and play big minutes and be really productive. So he would be that guy that we're going to get stuck into at 4,400 if the Rocket is out. If Rocket plays, then we don't want either of those guys. Let's talk point guards. Rajon Rondo, I guess, predictably wasn't awesome against John Wall. Not predictably. I thought he'd have a pretty good game. I didn't think he'd be as poor as he was. But at 25 points at 5,800, it's not a big loss. So I think it is a good play here. Yes, the Jazz are a difficult defensive team to go against. But I still like Rondo here. I still like the ability for him to play big minutes. He did it again today and be able to get to or exceed 30 points. I think he's a massive chance of doing that. So 5,800 on DraftKings, I think he is a really good play. He's at 58 on FanDuel as well, so still a solid option there. Georgie Hill's at 6,000. I'm not really interested in that. It is a good matchup for George against Rondo, but that just feels like it's a couple of $100 too high, and I think we can do better. At shooting guard, I love Denzel Valentine here. 3,700 for Denzel. Had 19 today in 31 minutes, and it's the minutes that are really appealing to me, so I do like Denzel at that price. It's a tough matchup. Well, we were aware of that, but I think that this is a good spot for Valentine. He's at 42 on DraftKings, so that's definitely not quite as appealing as what it could be. We're not using Rocket or Alec Burks anywhere. At small forward, I like Joe Johnson. He's a $3,900 player who's getting 22 to 23 points a night starting at power forward. If you're in a cash game, how can you argue with that? Cool. Just give me 6x and we're done with it. And that's exactly what he's doing. And then you build in other guys. Johnny, Russ, LeBron, all those sort of guys can come in and produce those sort of performances. So I love him there. Jim Butler with a big bounce back today. It is harder against the Jazz, so I'm not totally into Jim. But at 8,000 on DraftKings, that's pretty bloody hard to go past. So I do like him on draft. On FanDuel at 8,700, I'm not quite there. And as for Jinglen, at 4,100 and the 44 he is on DraftKings, there's appeal if Rocket is out, of course. Gordy Hayward is at 7,700. Has done fairly well against the Bulls in the past. He's in a little bit of a slump, but I like his GPP upside in this game. Paulie Zipser started. He's a minimum salary player, put up 17 points. That's actually not a bad result. On DraftKings at 3,000, 18 points. Not bad. Matchup's terrible. Consistency, reliability for Paulie is not quite where it needs to be, but we all caught Zipsanity fever at some point. So for GPPs, if you can get 24, 25 out of Paul, that really helps. At $8,000, getting 8x, that is really good value. So Zipsanity can have some value there. Nikola Mirotic, 4,300, dropped 36 today, averaging 32 across the last 3. Yes, it's the Jazz. I don't really care. I think this is a good play for Mirotic. And if I was going to be playing DFS tomorrow, which I'm not, I would have Mirotic in my lineup. I'm fairly confident of that. He's at 44 over on DraftKings as well. Still continue to love it. Bob Portis continues to be terrible, so let's not get interested there, nor with Boris Diaw. Robin Lopez coming off an absolute monster. A little bit different when you face Rudy Gobert, but the price that Robin Lopez is at on DraftKings at 3,600 is amazingly low. And I think that you've almost got to roll the dice at 3,600. That is ludicrous. He put up 46 points today. We're talking here 12, 13x value there. That is craziness. And yes, Gobert is a big impact. But at that price, man, how do you give it up? As for Rude, 7,900 for Rudy Gobert. That's maybe a little bit high. Robin Lopez has been a guy that's restricted some opposition centers. I'm not feeling Rudy at that sort of a price tag. And he's at 72 on DraftKings. That's fine. At 7,200 on DraftKings, I do like Gobert there. All right, let's move on to the next one now. Where are we? We've got the San Antonio Spurs and the Memphis Grizzlies. This just screams out boring. 3.5 point favorites to the Spurs, 198 in the total. And when I say boring, I mean in terms of just where is the DFS value coming from because of such a slow pace of the game and low total. I love watching the Spurs play. I love watching Kawhi play. There's nothing boring about watching that go down. Tone Parker and DeJounte Murray are both questionable. Obviously, if they are both out, it is time to unleash Pat Mills, who'll get 37 minutes and should be pretty productive. But with Pat, his salary at 4,500 is not bad. In fact, it's pretty good. So I wouldn't be. I thought he jumped up more, but maybe I was thinking of something else. I thought his salary had increased. Oh yeah, it's increased to 5,500 on DraftKings. So that takes a little bit of the sheen away, but it doesn't take it fully away. But you need both those guys out to rely on Pat, because if Murray plays and Parker is out, then you're going to get 28 of Pat and 20 of DeJounte. If they're both out, you're going to get 37, 38 of Pat, and that's going to be, you know, where the value really comes in there. Mick Conley's at 8,200. Yeah, he's been playing fantastically, but not here. 7,100 is great for him on DraftKings, so I do really like Conley over on that site. Wouldn't use Tone Parker if he happened to play. Tone Allen, no, the shooting guards here are disgusting. Tone Allen, Dan Green, Manu. Actually, you know what? Manu's worth a look at 3,900 if we get both Parker and Murray out, then you can definitely have a crack at Ginobili. I think he gets a little bit of value in that sort of a situation. Vincy Carter's a minimum salary GPP punt option. He was terrible in the last game, but we've seen him have some pretty big games, or one big game at least. So he is definitely worth a squiz. But only, of course, as a GPP guy. But the big name here is Kawhi Leonard, 9,900 for Kawhi. He's coming off a 62-pointer. Yes, Memphis has restricted him in the past, but I think it's a pretty good way to spend money, especially if you're taking some of those other cheaper options around. So Kawhi can have some value there. He's at 10,000 on DraftKings as well. So there's definitely something to see there with him. At power forward, I like LaMarcus Aldridge here. 6,900 is ridiculously cheap for Aldridge. He's got a massive record against Memphis, 46-point average in the last 3 games. The last couple of games haven't been great, but at 6,900, why wouldn't you throw him into a GPP? I think there is super upside there. He is at 6,200 on DraftKings, which is bananas. That is so low. That is one of the best GPP upside plays I reckon there is. Just ridiculously low priced. As for the Grizzlies, power forward, Zebo, JaMychal Green, no thanks. Dave Lee, nothing to see. Marc Gasol's at $8,000, facing off against his brother. Not in a low-paced game like this, I can't spend $8,000 on Marc Gasol. At $7,000 on DraftKings, I can, and I think that's really worthwhile. He's averaging 45 points over the last 3. $7,000 is a decent spot to use Marc Gasol, I believe. All right, let's move on to the next game. We have got the Houston Rockets and the Denver Nuggets. We go from a game with a total of 198 to a game with a total of 240. This is where the fantasy goodness comes from. The Rockets are favored by 2.5 points. Fareed is probable with his back. Sammy Dekker is questionable with his back, and Nene should be back from his rest. We've got the Rooster is out, Wilson Chandler is out, and Darrell Arthur is unlikely to play. So we're going to see more Farton Will Barton. We're going to see more Juancho Hernan Gomez. We're going to see more Mason Plumlee for Denver. There is going to be value abounding in this game. At point guard, the Blue Arrow, Jamal Murray, 4,400. Wasn't a great game in the last one. Still had 22 points. And with Farton Will Barton moving across to the 3 a little bit more, there's more minutes for the Blue Arrow next to Jameer Nelson. So I like Jamal at that 4,400 price tag. In fact, I like Jameer on DraftKings. He's at 4,300. He's going to be forced into some more minutes as well and sharing the court with Murray. Now at 5,000 for Jameer on FanDuel, it's not quite as impressive, but it's still pretty good. 5,300 for Pat Bev. Yeah, no, I don't really see it. It is a high up-tempo game, so he's definitely a guy that you include in GPP stacks for sure. At shooting guard, Will Barton had 46 in the last game. Pretty unlikely to expect him to repeat that. But in the last 3 games, just against Houston, he's averaging 37 points. Now, his salary's gone bananas. It's at 6,600, so it is making it tougher to use him, but it's not a complete write-off for Barton. 69 on DraftKings probably is. That's probably getting a little bit too high and a little bit aggressive in terms of their pricing structure. Nice, Gary! Gaz Harris is at 6,000. I don't know if I love it. I think it's all right. I think there's a little bit of upside there. At 59 on DraftKings, given what he does, I think that works a little bit better for him, but he's not a core player in my mind. Well, Jim Harden at 11.8 on FanDuel, at 12.4 on DraftKings. Much more preferable on FanDuel, that 11.8. 12.4 is too high, but I would definitely get stuck in. But on DraftKings, if you're doing stacks of this game, which again is a really good opportunity, sure, put him in. Yeah, you got a Harden, Jokic base. You add your Bartons, your Plumlees, your Lou Williamses, these guys in stacks that can really, really go off. At small forward, Trev Ariza, 5,200. I think he is actually not too bad at that price. Had a solid game today, nothing spectacular, but I think this is a good spot for Ariza in a nice up-tempo matchup. He's at 53 on DraftKings and not totally feeling it over there. Sammy Dekker's unlikely to play. At power forward, Juancho should start. He's a $4,000 player. And he's at 44 on DraftKings. That salary is a little bit unappealing. At 4,000, I think it's worth it. I think there's definitely, you can see why he would bring that value in. but I'm not so keen on DraftKings. Nikola Jokic, 10,700. Let's go, Jokic. He is, and sometimes it's hard for me to say, but he is my favorite player in the NBA. He is funny to listen to. He is as selfless and self-deprecating as you find any NBA player. He is the most fun player to watch. His passing is crazy, and Matt Moore, and I don't think Matt's piece has come out yet on CBS. You would know Matt Moore as at HP Basketball. He is doing a massive piece on Jokic and gone and interviewed him and shows him clips of the passes and goes, look, he's like, what are you doing? Like, how have you done these? And he's like, he goes, I don't know, man, I just throw it. And that's just what it feels like, that he's got like, I feel like if he looked in his head, it'd be like the Terminator, just like that red thing with the words coming up and the focus. He makes passes like they're not even there. Like, he throws guys open. And yeah, just go and check Matt's timeline from last night and wait for that article to come out. But he's my favorite player in the NBA. Yep, he's my favorite player. I need to get myself more Nikola Jokic merchandise. Now, as for DFS, I think he's a good play here. 10-7 on DraftKings, 10-7 on FanDuel. Ken Fareed at 5,400. I am not interested in that. Thanks very much. While the Rhino Ryan Anderson is obviously just a GPP guy. Mason Plumlee at 6,000. I think he's rock solid in cash. He's likely to start, almost guaranteed to start, and almost guaranteed to get 30 points. I really like Plum here. Clint Capella at 5,400. I think it's a decent spot for Clint, but I would only be interested in GPPs because D'Antoni is just not consistent with giving him the playing time that he needs to be a consistent producer. Last game of the night, the Milwaukee Bucks and the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors are favored by 11.5, and the total is 217. So we're talking about a pretty significantly high spread here, and that's not always ideal for our DFS purposes. Steph is at $10,000. I think he's a decent GPP option, but that's really about it. I'm not interested in him in any cash plays. While Broggo and Daly, who knows what kid's going to do, and the price for Brogdon at $5,000 is not all that appealing. I don't know how big his upside actually is at that salary, and the uncertainty makes me not interested. Klay Thompson, a GPP guy, always really no way to trust him in cash, although his recent production has been a lot more reliable, so he is someone that you could have a look at there. While Yanni is a shooting guard as well, 10,600 for Antetokounmpo. He hasn't done a huge amount in terms of being able to return that value for DFS, so he's really, to me, just a GPP guy. Absolutely no way I'd be interested in him in cash. At small forward, Iggy's at 4,800, has been putting up some good numbers recently, but really no reliability to get to that level. While Chrissy Middleton, even though, yes, he had a good game today, at 6,600, it feels too high, so I'm not all that keen on Chris Middleton. Tone Snell, Matt Barnes, not a lot to see from those guys. At power forward, I do like Draymond. It's a good matchup. He's at 8,200. Draymond, I think you're getting 40 points out of him pretty much every circumstance. He's at 8,000 on DraftKings as well. A super situation there for him. At center, Greggy Monroe, I don't think he's got any danger of being suspended, but centers against the Warriors, it's always a risk. Now, that hasn't been so much the case recently, so I don't hate it. I just hate that price. Zaza Pachulia, he's not getting it done. All right, let's move into the picks of the day. Moneyball. Oh, do we need to do Moneyball first? Let's go to FanDuel first. Sorry. FanDuel, the Blue Arrow, 4,400. Rajon Rondo, 58. And Chris Paul, 86. At shooting guard, Denzel Valentine, 37. Jeremy Lamb, 52. And Jimmy Harden at 11.8. Andre Iguodala, 48. Ariza, 52. And Leonard at 99. At power forward, Nikola Mirotic, 43. Cauley Stein at 62. And Draymond at 82. And at center, Robin Lopez, 45. And Mason Plumlee, 6,000. On DraftKings, Jameer at 43, Rondo at 58, and Chrissy Paul at 82. At shooting guard, Bazemore 41, Gaz Harris at 59. And Jim Butler at 8,000. Joe Johnson at 4,000, Gordie Hayward at 71, and Yanni at 9,700. Nikola Mirotic at 44, Millsap 73, and Draymond at 8,000. And at center, Robin Lopez 36, DeAndre at 6,500, and Blake Griffin at $8,000 dues. Let's move on to the Aussie sites now. Moneyball, Jameer 48, Rondo 53, and Westbrook at 13.3. Jeremy Lamb 41, Farton Will Barton at 51, and Jimmy Harden at 12. Joe Johnson 36, Gordie Hayward 75, and Butler 86. Mirotic 41, Aldridge 71, Draymond 83, and Cauley Stein at 53, and Jokic at 98. Let's round it out with draft stars. The Blue Arrow 72, Rajon Rondo 99, and Chris Paul 15.9. Denzel Valentine 55, Will Barton 10.950, and Steph at 17. Juancho Hernan-Gomez 58, Andre Iguodala 8.750, and Draymond 16.1. Power forwards Mason Plumlee 11.050, and Nikola Jokic 18.3. And the centers Robin Lopez 7.550, and Blake Griffin 13350. We're done. Follow me on Twitter at redrock_bball. Good luck with your finals matchups, your playoff matchups, and your DFS lineups. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. PJ Tucker.